everybody. This is the news we are waking up to for Thursday, December the 5th, 2024, day 1016 of the full-scale invasion. Last night, the Russian Federation sent 44 drones of the Shahed type at the territory of Ukraine, 30 of which were shot down, 12 of which were lost due to electronic warfare, we assume, and one that was returned to sender, 43 out of 44. That's a 97.7% interception rate. It's phenomenal. And it shows what the Ukrainians can do if we just give them the tools that they need to get it done. Now, it is worrying, though, because you'll notice that this week, the average number of drones sent is about half of the November average. Now, that could mean one of two things, right? Like they just don't have them. But given the way that they have ramped up production internally at the drone plant in Tardistan, and given that they are still getting Iranian shipments, I don't think it's a lack of drones. I think they're saving them up for a massive attack probably this weekend, probably Saturday night. That would be my guess. And we will watch the skies this weekend for just such a thing to happen. But I don't think that this low level of attack will last that much longer. Now, I have this video, don't I? Yes, I do. And I want to play the video for you so that you can see it for yourself. This is one of Zelensky's aides. She's at the UN. She's giving testimony before the UN of the mass murder of children in Ukraine. On average, 16 children a week since the start of the full-scale invasion. She's giving this testimony and she's talking about Yevgenia Basilevya, who was a mother of 3 girls in Lviv, and they were all murdered by the Russians in a missile attack in their home. Now, I want you to look. This is what you just heard about. This is what she's just talked about. Now, I want you to watch the reaction of the Russian representative to the UN as he hears this discussion of the murder of children.
Russia will never be able to alter its authorship from the atrocities committed in Ukraine.
I don't think I have to say anything else. I really don't. Not for any person of a normal, moral character. There is nothing else to say. That face right there tells us who our enemy is. The enemy of all mankind. Zelensky is worried about Georgia, and with good reason. It's right there. It's long time been under the thumb of Moscow, as all the former Soviet blocs have, with the exception of the Baltics, right? They managed to get out from under that thumb. And so in his daily address, he said yesterday, if we don't respond in time or act decisively, we face lost decades and nations robbed of their freedom. This is what I keep saying. The conflict in Ukraine is not just about Ukraine. It's primarily about Ukraine, clearly, because that's where all the action is right now. But it's about much more. It's about the future of Central Asia. It's about the tens of millions of people that still live under the Russian gangster kleptocracy and whose lives have no future. Not under that system that steals everything for the 500 people at the top. And that's not even a joke. I mean, we're worried about wealth inequality in the US, right? Because the top 1% owns like 50% of everything. In Russia, the 500 people at the top own 99.9998% of everything. It's not the same. It's not the same. In Brussels, the ministerial meeting of NATO wrapped up without an offer of NATO membership to Ukraine. However, what they were talking about were potential peace deals. Now, when we look at Zelensky's language, it has clearly changed recently. He's no longer talking about peace talks, he's talking about ceasefire agreements, and has publicly acknowledged, whether he believes it or not, he has stated that his army doesn't have the force to retake the occupied territories. They must look for a diplomatic solution. Maybe he believes that. Maybe he's saying that. I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is that they're not going to agree to a ceasefire with the temporarily occupied territories in the hands of Russia without some kind of security guarantees. Now, if they can't join NATO because that's a non starter for Putin, then the very least that Ukraine is going to have to agree to is NATO boots on the ground. And Germany's Annalena Baerbock yesterday in Brussels said they were open to the possibility of German boots on the ground to patrol and manage the peace in the temporarily occupied territories. There's only one problem. Ukraine could do all that. It could give up its sovereignty over the territories. It could accept the ceasefire. It could even accept being neutral. I don't think it will, but it could. Russia's not going to take that deal. No fucking way. Russia didn't want NATO on its borders. You think it wants NATO troops on its borders in its territory that it just won by force and violence, setting a terrible precedent for the rest of the world, by the way, just thumbing their noses at the rules-based international order. It's insanity. It's insanity. I don't have any idea how this thing is going to play out. And I think that anybody who claims to know how it's going to play out uh, is joking. Or just is ignorant of the complexities. Donald Trump is a wild card. We have no idea what he's going to do. Putin himself is pushing for the most maximalist goals, and he's not going to apologize. He's not going to offer reparations. He's going to protest if we try to hang on to those frozen assets for reparations. We don't know what's going to happen. But I'll tell you, the Trump peace plan, as I see it, is dead on arrival. There are conditions in that neither camp is going to agree to. Now, I thought this was very interesting. So this is in the Central African Republic, where the Wagner forces have been active for at least 4 years, as we talked about on last night's live. And in the Central African Republic, they have dedicated a monument to Yevgeny Prigozhin and his partner Utik, who led the Wagner PMC. They made a statues of them and put them in the town square. It is worth mentioning that, if I'm not mistaken, it's 50,000 acres. The Central African Republic, in exchange for Wagner PMC in CAD, or CAR, pardon me, they gave them a timber forest. I think it's 50,000 acres. So just a vast wealth of natural resource that the Wagnerites are exploiting at full tilt. They're cutting those trees down, turning them into lumber, and selling that lumber on the open market. So be careful. Don't buy any lumber that comes from the Central African Republic. Now, this is Putin's niece. She has recently been appointed to an important position in the government. And she, by accident, it appears, mentioned that there are 48,000, almost 50,000 Russian troops missing in Ukraine. 50,000 missing. Now, this is based on the number of relatives who have submitted DNA samples in efforts to identify their loved ones, which means the number could be much larger than 48,000. Not everybody has family. Not everybody has family that's going to trust the government enough to give them a DNA sample. So there's at least 40,000 Russian troops missing in Ukraine. And here's the critical part of this: since the start of the year. This is not an all-up figure for the war. This is the figure since January 1st. So just this year alone. She was quickly reprimanded by one of her colleagues who said the number of soldiers missing in action, this is a secret information and should not be shared in a public forum. Usually these televised meetings are then posted to the internet. This one was not. Finally, closing the market for the Russian ruble seems to have done the job. It has stabilized very well. It is back down near the magic 100 level. So right now, as of today, Thursday, the 6th of December, it's trading at 102.72 to the dollar. And that's it for me this morning. So, ladies and gentlemen, and other non-binary folks, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the live tonight. Take care.